Hi, freshman scholars. I am going to go through SpringBoard Activity 1.5 for you in this video. It's one that we're just going to review in class, but we're not going to do the complete top to bottom in our live session. So let's get started. Some of you have had trouble logging into SpringBoard, so I figured I'd start at my empty window. So it comes up in my Chromebook just like it will yours with Chrome. And there are several ways you can get there. If you've bookmarked it, that's probably the easiest way. We're going to use SpringBoard every day. So you might want to just put a bookmark in there and have it available to you. If you don't do that, though, you can go to my website. But to get there, you probably just want to start at the high school. So type in Bremerton High School into your search bar or your address bar. It should be the first thing that pops up. So you'll click on that. And depending upon how big your screen is, you may have to scroll down, but what you're looking for is the blue bar. So it says About Us on one side and Athletics on the other. And then in the middle, it says Staff Sites. So click on that and find your teacher. So for me, you're looking for Laura Callender. And on my homepage, you can see right here, a tab where you can, or a button where you can email me. You can go straight to SpringBoard or to the Google Classrooms page. So you would click on SpringBoard Digital unless you want to go to your specific class period to see if there's any announcements for the day. And you can see on the interactive virtual classroom where I've posted the agendas on the whiteboard. And over here on the bookshelf is our SpringBoard text. So you can just click directly on that. All right, so it took me straight in because I've already been logged in today. It might ask you to log in with Clever and then log in with Google. So remember, as I told you last week during our live session, you always need to make sure on this blue bar up here that where these little letters say National, you want it to say National 2021. And if it doesn't, you'll need to click on it and find Grade 9 SpringBoard English Language Arts English 1 National 2021. All right, and so you will click on that and it will take you to our ebook. So you click on View the ebook and it'll bring you up usually to the last place you were. So it brought me straight up to Activity 1.5. Now let's say it took you to a different one. Over here on the very left-hand side is a very small, thin, black navigation bar. Yours has some icons on it, but not all of the identical ones I have. But this one at the top looks like when you're in Google Docs, it's like a bulleted list. You're going to click on that, and that's your table of contents. So the previous and the next buttons go through the units, and then top to bottom are the activities. So we are going to Activity 1.5, which is where we are. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. So this is kind of a break in between our short stories, but it really is about crafting language. So the authors use complex sentences, which is what we're going to look at today, in order to get as much detail into their sentence as possible so that you can communicate a message about when, where, why, what, all of the details of a complete idea and a complete thought. So let's take a look at our learning targets, our objectives. So this activity is designed to help you create complex sentences. So move out of the more simple sentences into ways of combining clauses to show relationships between ideas. So when you think about when you were a little kid, we spoke in very small, simple sentences, right? See Spot run. Spot runs fast. Okay, so but that can get really boring and monotonous after a while. So we want to vary our sentence length, sometimes slow and short, sometimes longer and more detailed, to give it a rhythm. Kind of like when you listen to music, right? The same beat throughout, the whole 5 minutes of the song gets a little bit monotonous. So they have bridges and choruses, and there are ways to break it up and get the intensity to be more or less to pull you in and then let you ease back. So that's what writing should do. Good writing should have a lovely rhythm that pulls the reader in and then lets the reader breathe and then pulls them back in again. So we're going to take a look at this and hopefully create some complex sentences to help us show relationships. Now, as I said, what you're doing when you write sentences is for the listener or the reader. So we have to understand the ways in which our language choices as authors and speakers can be made to achieve the intended effect. Do we want the reader to feel rushed? Do we want them to feel at ease? Do we want them to feel suspense or tension? So the way we put our words together and how we choose our words and what we say does create that impact in the reader. So we want to write intentionally to impact the reader. So let's take a look at how that's done in some ways. So if we were together, we would be doing a think, pair, share activity. So learning strategies. Really, you are thinking. We're doing a virtual pairing by you typing in your answers and saving them and then sharing them with me. So we're not really doing a think, pair, share, but I'm going to share with you, and then through your writing and answers, you're going to share with me. So let's take a look at independent and dependent clauses. You've looked at these in the previous two activities, 1.3 and 1.4. And so you have some exposure to them, but let's define what they are. So an independent clause has a subject, so the person or thing that is doing the action, and a predicate, which is the verb or the verb phrase, the action. And an independent clause can stand on its own as a sentence. So it is a complete sentence. Okay? A dependent clause, on the other hand, which is also called a subordinate clause, is a group of words that has a subject and a predicate, but does not express a complete thought. So it can't be a complete sentence on its own. Okay? It has to be combined with an independent clause in order for it to make a complete sentence. Okay? So we're going to get started by looking at some of these activities. I'm going to read the questions and do one or two with you, and then you're going to do some on your own. All right, let's take a look. So part number 1 says the following clauses come from the first sentence of the first day. Okay, the short story that we read in activity 1.4. Label each clause as independent or dependent. Okay, so either it is a complete sentence or it is not. And then explain why you answered the way you did. So let's do A together. So we're going to do two of them together that I've chosen. We're going to do A and then one other. So A says down New Jersey Avenue. So think about that. Let's say you're sitting in the classroom and the teacher walks in and she says, "Oh, hey, April, down New Jersey Avenue." You're not quite sure what that teacher is saying to you or asking you to do. There's something missing, right? So let's take a look at it, right? So down New Jersey Avenue. So does it have a subject? Does it have a person or thing that is doing the action? Well, no, it doesn't, right? I don't know what's down New Jersey Avenue. All right, so now does it have a predicate? Remember, the predicate is the verb phrase, the action that is taking place. Is there action in this phrase? There is not. So down New Jersey Avenue. I don't know what's happening down New Jersey Avenue. So there is no subject and there is no predicate. So I'm going to click on A and it's going to allow me to type in here, and I'm going to call it a dependent clause. And the reason I say it's a dependent clause is because it has no subject or predicate. Now, some teachers really want you to type in complete sentences, right? So I'm going to go back and I'm going to say, all right, let's see. This is a dependent clause because It has no subject or predicate. All right. And I have to click save. So don't forget to click the yellow button that says save. All right. Now we'll go back and we'll check that answer in just a second against what SpringBoard recommends the correct answer is. But let's do one other together because it's a tricky one and I want to walk you through my thought process, okay? So scroll down to E when you're ready, or if you're looking in your paper book, look at E. E says, and we set off. Now that's a pretty common phrase. I hear phrases like that all the time. Now I'm looking at this and I'm feeling with my gut, does this feel right or not? And we set off. Now my gut tells me that this is a dependent clause and it's wrong. However, it is not. It is an independent clause. So here's how I want to caution you on this one. We have been told through our academic careers not to start a sentence with the word and, okay? And I'll tell you why. Because it feels like something's missing and we set off. Well, what's the other piece? And means there's a 1 and a 2. There is this and there is this. So it feels like something's missing. Now, remember I said in the beginning when we looked at our learning targets that writers are intentionally trying to create an effect with their audience. Now, if the effect is to make your audience feel like this is just one more thing, and they want to put the emphasis on the and, like there's all these things, and we set off. So we did this, and we did this, and we did this, and we set off. This is just more in our morning. This is just more things that happened to me on my first day. Then it might be appropriate to do that. You can do that if it is intentional. Otherwise, you're going to leave your reader feeling dissatisfied. All right, so as I said, my understanding is that this is an independent clause. So this is an independent clause. Now let's look at why. Because does it have a subject? So the person or thing doing the action. Yes, it does. We. So it has a subject. Does it also have a predicate? So a verb phrase, something that is happening, an action. Yeah. Set. Set is a verb. So it does have a predicate and a predicate. All right. Remember, if it only has one of those things, then it's a dependent clause. It does have both, and the and can go there. And so I believe it to be an independent clause. So we're going to save that, save every answer you type in. And I'm going to scroll up and I'm going to turn my answers on so that we can look at what SpringBoard says. So SpringBoard says that down New Jersey Avenue is a dependent clause. It does not have, it says, it has no subject or predicate. All right. It does not have a subject or a verb. All right. Now I'm going to scroll to, what letter was that? F. Here we go. Let's try and hide the other ones. Okay. So in the yellow box is SpringBoard's answer. And they said, and we set off is an independent clause. Even though it begins with a conjunction, and the clause has a subject and verb, excuse me, it's that smoke in the air, and expresses a complete thought. All right, so scrolling back up to turn these off. All right, so I would like you to go ahead and complete the other letters in part 1 on your own. So let's look at part 2 and see what we can do together. Now, part 2 is asking you to look at the very same clauses, some of them dependent, some of them independent, and identify what is this detail, this particular clause answering in these questions. So it gives us these questions. Who does what? So what is the subject? Who's doing something? When? So we're looking for that object of time. So when does something happen? Where? So another detail. And why? So I'm going to do A. A is back to down New Jersey Avenue. Well, it's not who does what. It's not telling me who. And there's no action. So it doesn't do that. Does it answer when? Nope. Doesn't tell me when something was taking place on New Jersey Avenue. Does it answer the question where? Yes, it does. Where? On New Jersey Avenue. So I'm going to click on my A, and I'm going to say this answers the question where. Now I know that up there it has a question mark, but because I'm making it a sentence, there is a period at the end. All right, and so you'll go through the remainder of part 2 and finish those. So let's look at the next part. Part 3. Now use the clauses from steps 1 and 2 to reconstruct the complete sentence from the first day. Be sure to include commas where necessary. Now, I know that you are not experts at using commas, and that's okay. Everyone makes errors with commas, but we're going to learn as we go through the year kind of the appropriate placement for them. For today, I'm not looking at where you put your commas. I am looking at how you put your clauses together to create a complex sentence. So take the A through F clauses and put them together to recreate that sentence from the beginning of the story. All right. Now, you're not just copying the sentence from one place in the book to another. I really want you to go back up and look at them and think about how you can put them together in a sentence that makes sense. All right. Now, let's look at number 4, because 4 I do want to model for you. 4 says, notice that the clauses in the sentence from step 3 follow this pattern. When, who does what, where, and why. It says, now write an original complex sentence following the same pattern and label each part of the sentence. The sentence can be based on an event in your own life or an event that happened to someone else. All right, so I'm going to start by labeling my sections or my pattern. I'm going to identify the where and those kinds of things. I'm going to go with something that happened to me today. So when it happened this morning, and who, oops, it doesn't like return for some reason. So I'll just put a semicolon here. Who does what? It was Pearson and I, and what we did was we played Fortnite Monopoly. Whoops. All right. And then where was inside at the table. And then why was because it was too smoky to play outside. All right, so I have all the details of what happened this morning, and I have labeled them with the when, who does what, where, and why. And now I'm going to put them all together in a sentence. So this morning, and I use a comma there, Pearson and I played Fortnite Monopoly, notice my capitals there, inside at the table, because it was too smoky to play outside. All right, so I have a complete sentence. This morning, Pearson and I played Fortnite Monopoly inside at the table because it was too smoky to play outside. True story. All right, and I'm going to click save. So now I have followed the pattern. I have added details. I've used some commas. I capitalized my pronoun I and my proper nouns, and I have a period at the end. So you need to come up with your own original sentence. So you probably weren't playing Fortnite Monopoly with my grandson at the table this morning. So come up with your own and put it in the box and save it. Let's look at the last little section. It's really the same thing, but it's taking an observation from an image and then looking for the what, who does what, when, where, and why. So in this box is the assess and reflect activity. It says, read the historical background about this well-known image. You've probably seen it. I've seen it many times. And use the information you learned to complete the exercise that follows. Then use what you know about ordering clauses to expand the kernel sentence. So the kernel sentence is the piece that is just the basics. So the very simplest idea, and then you're going to add details to it. into an informative caption. So if I wanted to caption this picture in one sentence by expanding on the very first observation I make, then I'm going to add some of those details. Who does what, where, when, and why. All right, so I'm going to scroll down. So take a look at the picture. In the picture, what I see first, what is front and center, is a sailor kissing the woman. All right, and so I'm going to make that my kernel here. I'm just going to put that as a dependent clause because it is not a complete sentence. Now, it does have a subject and a verb, but it does not have all the pieces it needs to be a complete sentence. Okay? All right, so you're going to go through the when. So you're going to have to read the information in the historical background. You can highlight. So if I'm looking for whens, I might click on World War II. And when I highlight that with my cursor, I can see I can highlight. So I might highlight all of the whens in one color, maybe the whys in another color, maybe the wheres in a third color. All right, there we go. So I'm going to go through, then I will scroll down and I will type them in the appropriate boxes. And at the bottom where it says expanded sentence, you're going to type out a caption sentence for the picture that has all of the details. And feel free to use that kernel, a sailor kissing a woman, as the seed or the basis for your complex sentence. All right, so that is independent clauses, dependent clauses, and turning them into complex sentences. And we will come back and revisit this from time to time after you complete the activity and you feel comfortable working through this. If you are in my class, Ms. Calendar's class, you will be taking the quiz and showing me how much you learned. All right, thanks, you guys. We will see you soon. Enjoy.